Here.
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 All right. Does anybody else have any announcements? I've got a couple for those that are interested. Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, starting at 6, is the I-66 mobile or a multimodal meeting. 4 Point Sheridan?
No, Battlefield.
It's this Wednesday. It's the 4 Point Sheridan Manassas.
Manassas. Starts at 6. I think it ends at 9. For anybody else that's concerned, the county is doing their annual comprehensive plan amendment initiations tomorrow. The two closest to us are Midwood, which is across from Walmart. Staff has recommended denial. We'll see what happens with that. And the Stonehaven complex out on Linton Hall Road, in which the planning office has done a 180 from last year and is now recommending approval. We'll see where that one goes. And if anybody's interested, after the meeting, I went to the Bi-County Parkway Town Hall last week, I think. And if anybody's got any questions on it, I'd be more than happy to talk to them after the meeting on that. In addition to that, I would move that we amend the agenda to add item 5A, a deck at 14711 Alexander's Keep Lane, zoning permit number 20121218. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Citizens' time. Anybody wish to address the Planning Commission? Seeing none, I'll close citizens' time. Minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes of the February 11th, 2013 meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Certificate of appropriateness. Mr. Schneider, 20121218, the deck.
Mr. Chairman, this was approved by the commission, I believe, last month or the month before last. What you have before you is simply an amendment. They're adding they wish to add a stairwell to the side of the deck. It still meets our setback requirements, and we recommend approval.
Discussion? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion to approve zoning permit number 20121218 at 14711 Alexander Keep Lane.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Next.
Thanks, Mr. President.
ARB update.
ARB update. Okay.
Wait for it.
You Ralph. There you go.
You're supposed to kick him.
There has been discussion concerning the historic district, probably the last of which we have not heard. The ARB is differing opinions on what should happen with the district. That's about the best that we can say right now.
To be continued.
To be continued.
Madam Mayor.
Holly?
I just want to take this time to let the Planning Commission and those in attendance know that in addition to the I-66 environmental impact statement public hearing this Wednesday, the following Wednesday, March 20th, is the public hearing for the Route 15 I-66 interchange at Battlefield High School between, I believe it's 6 and 8 p.m. There's a notice on the website, on our town website about it as well.
Do you have any indication as to why they moved the schedule back 6 months?
It was getting the environmental documentation completed. They could not hold the public hearing until 30 days after the environmental documentation was complete.
So they moved the whole schedule back?
It had to move back.
Had to move back? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, not cool, but okay. Without objection, I want to skip new business and go straight to the first two items of old business. No objection?
No.
Haymarket Baptist Church, final site plan and rezoning. Mr. Schneider.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I figured you would want to take up or as you suggested, take up the rezoning first. You had a joint public hearing last month. This is to rezone a portion of the Baptist Church campus from B1 to R1, which would unify the campus under the one zoning district. There was no public comment at the hearing. What we've indicated in the staff report that is consistent with the uses that are suggested for the site are consistent with the zoning district and consistent with the comprehensive plan. What you have before you is a resolution from the commission basically stating those statements that I just made. Your recommendation will go to the council for final approval.
So all we have to do is, where do we stand with the waivers? Do we have to reschedule a hearing? Is that already?
I was going to take that up as part of the site plan. Just with the rezoning is just,
So the rezoning's good, we're good to go on that?
correct. You just move it forward based on the resolution. That'll go to the council for final action.
Okay. I know we've been over this time and time again. Does anybody have any further discussion on the rezoning aspect? Would you care to make a motion?
Oh,
Do we need to read that thing?
yeah, I'm good. Whereas the Planning Commission has held a public hearing to consider a zoning map amendment, REZ 20121106, filed by the trustees of Haymarket Baptist Church to rezone .69 acres, identified as G10 7397092472, or 14820 Washington Street, from B1 zoning to R1 zoning. Whereas the Planning Commission must consider whether the amendment furthers the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, and whereas the Planning Commission must consider whether the amendment is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, and whereas the Planning Commission must consider the impact of the amendment on the services, character, and needs of the community, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that the amendment is consistent with the existing uses and character of the R1 zoning district, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that properties in the R1 zoning district are suitable for the uses contemplated in the amendment, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that the amendment is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that the amendment would not have negative impact on the town's transportation infrastructure, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that the amendment would not negatively impact the value of neighboring properties, and whereas the Planning Commission has determined that the amendment would encourage the most appropriate use of the land throughout the town, and whereas each finding is severable. Now therefore, the Planning Commission of the Town of Haymarket finds that the amendment does further the public necessity, convenience, and general welfare, does constitute good zoning practice, and is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, and recommends that the Haymarket Town Council approve zoning map amendment REZ 20121106, trustees of Haymarket Baptist Church.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, the site plan.
Mr. Chairman, two issues to work through. First, as we detailed in the staff report, the preliminary plan was approved in 2008. Over the years since, we've gone through multiple iterations based on staff comment. In terms of the review of that final site plan, the applicant has changed, amended the plan to indicate the changes recommended by VDOT and the Sanitation Authority. As of this evening, we do not have those final approval letters, but again, those improvements have been incorporated into the plan. So in that case, you would not be able to take action tonight on the final site plan. The second part of the application is the waivers. This was for the landscaping along the eastern or western boundary of the site up against the animal hospital. They wanted to do a fence and then take all that screening and put it to the north up against villages of Haymarket. And so those, as we've done previously, go to a hearing. That was supposed to happen last month. It was not advertised. That would need to go next month, and that would be another joint hearing. So we would suggest that while the approvals are being vetted, the final approvals from VDOT and the Sanitation Authority, that you go ahead and schedule that hearing for April so that we can knock out the waiver discussion.
Have we already approved the hearing for those particular waivers?
The council last month, have you heard them in public hearing?
Have we scheduled a public hearing for the Planning Commission for those particular waivers?
You did last month.
We did last month?
But the hearing was not held because it wasn't advertised.
So we could just do that by directive then, to
Okay.
republish,
To republish for the April 1st town council meeting.
to direct the clerk's office to republish those waiver hearings for April.
It's April 1st.
April
Is the-
1st.
yeah.
how appropriate.
Uh-huh.
April 1st. Seeing as we do not have the required service authority and VDOT letters, I'm going to defer further action on this application until a date certain, April 8th.
Okay.
Is that a holiday?
Oh, there's a calendar over there too. Is it a holiday? Shouldn't be.
I don't know.
No, it's not.
White letters and,
Whatever.
It's just second Monday.
oh, that's in that.
So we'll
It's
defer the
a
site
library
plan
number
until
and
next
it
month's
has a
meeting on the
number.
8th.
Usually.
Deal with it then. I'm assuming that all the required letters will be in by that point in time.
We will update you.
All right, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Excuse me just a second.
Good.
Keep going, sorry, keep going.
Thought you needed me. Where were we? Back up to capital improvements plan. Madam Mayor.
Every year, the Planning Commission is supposed to review and make a recommendation to council for the capital items for consideration in the 2013-2014 budget. In addition, in putting this together, and it was my first year putting that together, in reviewing both of the town's 5-year CIP programs, which we also need to do, they need a little updating as well. So that's homework for all of us to look at. This evening, we need to concentrate on the items for the 2013-2014 budget.
In looking at this, I won't say anything about the QuickBooks. I told you so. I don't have any real issues with the first 10 items on the actual capital items for consideration. On the next one, the public safety ones, has the town not corrected the telephone system yet over there?
It was on his list of items that he wanted for consideration this year.
He has the proposal.
He had an estimate, and in comparing to what the town ended up paying for their phones and here, and they have more phones there, I wanted to double-check the numbers before I put them in.
I think if we're talking CIP, driveway paving, not repair, not replacement, just pave the bloody thing.
If we pave it, then we have to do stormwater.
Yeah. It's the cost of owning property and maintaining it properly. That's just my 2 cents for what it's worth. And then last but not least, one of my favorite issues, the caboose. Have we ever, is the grant squared away on that?
Yes.
And 42,000 is not what we're paying 20% of 42,000,
Exactly.
correct? So our estimated cost is 8,400. So are we going to put the full 4,200 in there because we have to get reimbursed, or are we just going to put our true cost?
The old CIP had 42,000 written down for that, and since it hadn't been completed yet, that's just where I copied it from. So
I'd
I
suggest
do not.
changing it to 84. Give everybody a true sense of what it's going to cost us.
It is a public safety issue at this point, so we certainly should move forward towards getting that squared away. Or some child is climbing on and gets hurt or something. That's all we need.
As far as the other items on the PD budget, tasers and that seems to be much more of an equipment budget than a CIP issue.
So remove?
The taser I would take out. I mean,
Okay.
that's something he should fund it. If he needs the funding for that, is general equipment. Same thing with the radar replacement. I mean, that's equipment that the town should budget as part of its regular operating budget. I mean, you've got equipment replacement for obsolete equipment. It's not a capital improvement. Same. I mean, I would say that for radar replacements, in-car computers, and the tasers. The in-car cameras is a different story because they don't have any. The in-car computers is a life cycle issue. We knew they had to be replaced. So those are continuing operating expenses, not CIP issues, in my mind at least.
So the recommendation that I need to take to the budget meeting is to
Find the
add,
funding in the budget for those things. Yeah.
to increase his equipment line item budget to cover these purchases over the next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a necessity, and it's part of their responsibility is to fund that.
Or maybe look at the budget moving forward to be able to cover some of the expenses, now and push out some of them to the next year if his budget can't handle those kind of numbers.
Well, the problem is,
And then if it's something that's really needed, you can come back to look for the capital funds. If it's something that really has to happen and he doesn't have it in his budget, then that's what the capital fund should be used for. Not knowing what his budget is, it's kind of hard to sit here and figure what we should be.
unfortunately, I know what his budget is, and I know what the problem he's having is that he wasn't given enough room in his budget for equipment replacement of this caliber or of this size in
And if we
recent
don't
years.
have it listed as a possible capital improvement, then he can't come and ask for it as a capital improvement later,
He's got to
correct?
demand it as part of his budget, correct. And that's where it belongs. It does not belong in the CIP. So I would make
3, 4, and 8.
the town's budget guru, Councilman Vice Mayor Tobias, aware of that. And he now has to find funding for that.
Well, Chair Weir, we will be having our first budget workshop on the, is it the 18th?
Oh, great.
19th.
Just another meeting to go to. Anybody else got any thoughts?
I don't think we should remove it until we know that there's, if there's no budget for it anyplace else or wasn't planned for, we're still going to have to fund those expenses somewhere.
I think I'll go back in and add it at the end, but I mean, as a preliminary CIP draft that we have to submit, I mean, my sense is they either fund their responsibilities or they don't. And if they don't fund it, then we can take it up at a later date and amend the CIP. But it seems to me we're letting everybody off the hook and not getting anything done if we just stick it in the CIP and wait for, rosier days, money or monetarily to cover it. I mean, somebody's got to force the issue and put it where it belongs, and it belongs as an operating budget expense, not a CIP expense. At least in my mind.
I agree.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I think that the concern that I have is whether or not there was any planning for that previously. If he was never told he should make that part of his, budget moving forward, then now he's going to be in a position where he doesn't have the funds already, and if it's, especially when it comes to public safety, we need to make sure we make those funds available somewhere. So if we can come back and add it later,
Oh, yeah, we can
that's
add
all
it.
well and good, but we ought to find out where he sits, and if he isn't planning for that this year, then we should probably try to, maybe
I
put
suspect
some of those plans in the future budget so that he's aware of that.
there should be a set aside in the future, yes. I think part of the problem is a communication issue as to where he's supposed to request this. He thinks it's a CIP issue, I think it's an operating expense
Right.
issue. And it may be more of a communications
Well,
issue.
it'll be funded somewhere.
Yeah.
I will work with the PD liaison and Chief Roop and make sure they add these numbers into their proposed
So I'm going to
budget.
be Mr. Popular with the chief now, great. Oh, well.
And, we'll see if it runs up the flagpole. If it doesn't, we'll add it back
Okay.
in.
The 5-year, you want everybody to bring back recommendations
Yes.
next month?
And looking through the 5-year CIP and last year's, trying to come up with our worksheet here, our 5-year CIP is still based on the sale of this property.
Yeah.
So we just need to update this so it kind of falls in line with what the previous council and this council are looking forward to, that this is town hall.
And I think, hand in hand with that is the point with regard to the stormwater on the PD property. Understanding it's unlikely that it's going to get done in this year's CIP, get funded in the CIP. Perhaps that's something, I think we need to refocus, given that this property hasn't been sold, it isn't going to be sold. The 5-year CIP needs to be, quite frankly, gutted and start, we need to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Because this is all but useless right now.
I do have preliminary information from the police department on an item that they will be needing. Hopefully, there will be grant funding available. I don't have numbers as of yet, but it is for the e-summons ticket system, which the state is testing in some jurisdictions now. It involves a little computer for each vehicle to print out the ticket and a main server for the police department. I don't think this is going to be an inexpensive venture, but it is something that we'll have to try to fit into the 5-year CIP.
And knowing the state will mandate it within a year and they just pay for it, so.
Yeah. Hopefully, there will be grant funding available to help offset some of the cost.
or a subsidy from the state.
But that will be a major police department issue for the for the 5-year CIP. And with the way the state's usually done everything, I'm guessing next year. So,
All right. Next up, old business item, CLG historic overlay. We've been tasked with forwarding draft zoning text amendments to reduce the historic district. Am I correct? That is our task order?
I will have to ask the council liaison. I was not at the continuation meeting,
Ah.
so.
Yes, that is what we were testing.
4 to 2.
There is, we talked about this last month in terms of both the reduction in the size of the historic district as well as a potential for an overlay district for the gateway areas. I was going to bring text in tonight to cover the overlay district, and I think I gave everybody a copy. There's a corridor enhancement package straight from the city of Winchester that accomplishes what I think we want to accomplish with our gateways.
Gateway, we left one gateway in.
Well, no, we didn't.
We left 2 gateways in,
Okay.
down here and,
Well, not entirely, because
Not
that's
entirely. But, and I was just going to
No, we have all
incorporate this and
three,
use it
so-
as a draft for us to work from, and pretty much I thought we could get it done in a hurry. Unfortunately, it's 22 pages long, and I suspect far more detailed than I think we need or many of us are going to want. So in addition to your comp plan homework, CIP homework, I'd like everybody to take this thing and what I'd like is input from everybody on what they want taken out, and if they think there's anything that needs to be added in. I personally believe there's way too much stuff in here for a corridor district, and I'd like to strip it down substantially. I think they just get into way too much detail. I don't think we really care about the height of bicycle racks.
well, actually, yeah, we do, because that falls under Washington Street beautification, and we do that anyway.
Okay, well, then we can substitute the Washington Street stuff there.
I have to say, I kind of like how
Detailed? in it?
detailed it is. I think this will help.
Then congratulations, you just inherited the project.
I think this will help alleviate a lot of the resistance to shrinking
Yeah.
the district.
Thank you for playing the game and accepting the responsibility.
No, I'm still doing CIP, so this is all still your baby.
With regard to the first part, the historic district, apparently there is, judging from the motion and the support on council, they would like to see draft text to reduce the size of the historic district. Quite frankly, I already had it written. It's the piece of paper with the line out and the blue additions. And that's what I would forward. I'm going to ask for a motion to forward that along with the map we've already drawn to cover the historic district aspect of it. And we will notify council that it's going to be a little bit of time before the overlay map and the overlay text comes to them, just because it's a bit more of a project than I initially thought it would be. I'd still like to get it back to them in a draft form by May. I don't think that's going to be a problem, especially when I get some help with it.
I'll help.
But what I would like is a motion to go ahead and forward the draft text and draft map for their consideration,
The map
which they
needs
would
to be
then kick
fixed.
back to us to schedule public hearings and approval.
You want to move this forward?
Or we just want to
May?
initiate it and call the public hearing. So we can do it either way.
The map needs to be fixed.
What do you want to put on it?
It doesn't have the one inventory home on Madison Street in it.
I thought we did put that on it.
Well, it's not on this
We
one.
talked about it.
Oh, okay.
And do we want to do this as
As a
2
amendment.
separate things, or do this all at one time? Because if we do it all at one time and people see this, along with this,
I think we need to adopt it the same.
I would tend to agree. However, I have been told that we have to get them something next month, so I'm just trying to keep council happy. If it is the pleasure of this panel to not do that, I'm more than happy to do that as well and consider it all at one time. I think it makes more sense.
I think what we probably do in April, I think in April they want to have a hearing, but the council has to initiate it, they have to send it to you. they have to
Actually, we
send it
can
in.
initiate it.
You could, but you
And
certainly
maybe
want to
that's what
have
we'll
some
just do.
tentative language, so maybe part of it, the update at the council next month is to say, we've trimmed some draft language on the district boundaries. We're starting to whittle it down on a potential corridor overlay district. And then we'll you can either hold your hearing on it, or you could send it up to the council and say, are we going in the right direction? I think council, having a public hearing in April, to me at this point, that simply is just soliciting input from the public. Does the public want to see it tweaked or not?
But with no language to present.
Exactly. It's simply it's just, I guess, starting the conversation in the public.
Well, I know I'm only one member on council, but I'd be more than happy if we took this up in May rather than the April 1st meeting.
And I'll take that as the intent of the council then. So.
Well, I'm only one member. I was very careful to specify
Yeah,
that.
but you're the only one here, so we'll take that for what it's worth. In that case, I guess as a calendar, what I'd like to do is get everybody to have comments back to me on the corridor stuff by
End of this month?
April 1. And I will have a draft text out to everybody before the end of that week for consideration. And we can mark it up in April, schedule a public hearing for May, and proceed. We can initiate it in April. We can initiate it in April, schedule a public hearing, and move on from there, however long those steps take.
Can I belabor the discussion for a quick second?
You most certainly may.
Okay. Something that Chairman Weir had pointed out when he talked about the state enabling legislation is that we do have the ability to keep within the historic district the corridor. But I think based on the discussion that we've had now is trying to draw that back and have the corridor overlay with a little more specific and subjective language. I think what I would look when you're looking through this is to envision, well, the comprehensive plan already has some language in it about what that corridor is supposed to look like. The idea of amending the map and doing the corridor at the same time is, I guess, looking at it in reverse. Those people have already spent the money in the architecture. They would I'm suspecting that they may be a little concerned if all of a sudden there were no standards whatsoever and someone could just build a mini strip mall without any, as long as they met the zoning requirements. So I think having already had that, whether it's Haymarket vernacular or not, whether we're Williamsburg or not, we have by default had some buildings with some fairly attractive architecture. We would want to make sure that that's continued in some capacity. And so when you're looking through here, if you just keep in your mind whether it looked like either the Bloom or it looked like the shopping center, or look at those elements that you find attractive with each that you would want to have part of. Because basically what's left is the fairgrounds. And Winterham. If Winterham was supposed to come back in, those buildings that are unbuilt would likely be changed. Sheets, whoever thought Sheets would be rebuilt.
Winterham's
No,
in it.
Winterham's still in the historic district.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
I take that away. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's
Anyway,
the fairgrounds
basically
and the industrial park.
The fairgrounds and the industrial park, which I think we're thinking about maybe leaving the industrial park out. We haven't really put a lot of review under that. Quarles, if we're not to have standards, they could come back in and amend their architecturals and change. We've seen with McDonald's is wanting to change. So without having some sort of controls, it is certainly an option that some of these buildings may get torn down and rebuilt. So anyway, that's food for thought as you look it over.
The other thing we need to consider is what do we want the boundaries of the corridor to be? And I think you're going to find some guidance in this document on how I think you're going to want to make that corridor. So if everybody can get the comments back by April 1, that would be great. I'll start working with the text probably tomorrow and playing around with it a little bit and seeing what I can do. And hopefully we can take this up and dispose of it in rather short manner, although I'm sort of tending to doubt it at this point in time. But take it one meeting at a time. Comp plan and ZTAs.
Still in a holding pattern until we make a command decision on.
Yeah, everything's on hold until we get this historic district done.
Yep.
All right. U-Haul business, where do we stand?
We had a meeting with Mr. Durham and the town attorney and his real estate agent. What they had brought to our attention is, we're on the record, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Okay. Being tactful here. Essentially, the occupancy permits are granted for most of those tenants. So we have one entity issuing permits for occupancy and not having the corresponding zoning permit for any site improvements that would have to be done. So it puts the town in a precarious situation when we have that thing happening. So in terms of D&J, is kind of what I thought would be the nexus to bring U-Haul into compliance. Talking with the town attorney, we're initially thinking that some of the things they've done now, grading without a permit, stockpiling debris, those are things we can identify through the codified ordinance. But at this point, it may be difficult for us to make them pave the site specifically for D&J. So probably need to think about some more how we want to do it. Alex, the guy that wanted to do the soccer plex, that would have started to bring the site into compliance. Obviously, that went away. We talked with Mr. Durham about doing a master plan, consolidate the two parcels, the railroad spur, consolidate the main building into one lot, and then just do a site plan for all of it. And as each tenant comes online, they build their respective, because basically the issue is parking. You have to pay for parking, and that kicks in stormwater. So each tenant comes online, or each tenant changes out, you finish the parking. Mr. Durham seemed to waver back and forth on whether or not he wanted to incur that expense. I think at this point he's inclined to have his potential tenants pay for it all, or pay for it in phasing. So they have until July in that front space where Rice Tire was to get an equal tenant in there. If they don't, that grandfathering will end, and any tenant that goes in there is going to have to upgrade their portion of the site. So it's continuing that dialogue with Mr. Durham. But with U-Haul, we're probably going to have to figure out if the ZTA goes through with the Haymarket self-storage, they'll be able to do the
Storage.
they'll be able to do the non-motorized, storage without a site plan. So
In that case, we just defer it to a date.
Um,
Indefinite.
I think we have another issue because Haymarket Motors, for their U-Haul rental, just put it in as the $50 commercial fee. They need a ZTA. That's a much larger fee.
Well, I think-
No, I thought we squeezed them in under a...
well, we did bring them, we did define them under two uses in the I-1 district.
Okay.
The problem was, as a special use permit, they have to have all asphalt or concrete
Yep.
in their parking area. So unless the council was willing to say that they've been established, they've been there for so long that they're not otherwise required to upgrade the site.
What's our fee for an SUP? And to ask for a waiver?
$500.
At this point, given the, where do we stand with the ZTA from the self-storage?
They've submitted their application with their fee, and we are to start reviewing the plan, I guess, and get it before the commission.
In that
They
case-
have requested another meeting.
That's when I say I guess.
So I'm assuming that we're going to have some motion one way or the other between now and next month?
April, hopefully.
Hope so. It's been a little difficult to kind of get them to the finish line and get their materials submitted.
But we're almost there. Let's be
That being
happy.
said, I mean, there's likely to be some sort of resolution to this in a final form within the next, or near final form within the next 2 or 3 months. My inclination with regard to the U-Haul then is to defer it indefinitely until that is handled, because no harm, no foul at this point in time, I guess.
Well, they are
Sherry,
paying
do they
it.
have a business license for the U-Haul business at this point in time?
No,
So we still have an issue.
they weren't going to get that until the zoning.
Yeah.
But did they pay tax? Did they pay taxes on them? I thought they came in and they paid their.
So they paid their taxes, they just don't have their license. Okay.
See, that's the catch-22
Yeah.
I am in with this. So,
Thank you, Alex, the soccer guy.
Yeah.
Woke up the sleeping dog.
Can we, if we're trying to get the ZTA across the finish line for self-storage by April, can we defer this no longer to the May meeting and then come up with some resolution to this?
What's the name meeting day?
That is the 13th.
In that case, without objection, we defer it until May, what'd you say, 13th? May 13th?
For final
For
disposition,
final
please.
disposition? I'll believe it when I see it. Okay. 1 Mile Development.
Talked about Midwood already. We've got a hearing, I think, in 2 weeks on the Heathcote development north of town.
We have comments in on that?
We did. I think I CC'd you on those comments. They still want to do up to a 4-story building. but they have not reduced proportionally their parking, so it's kind of an odd type of thing. They are proffering to make the connection on the east side of Old Carolina and go all the way to Heathcote to tie into that trail system up there.
Has there been any further movement on the former Priva property, the garage on Jordan Lane?
No, I've not heard anything else
On that?
on that. I think the challenge we're going to have with the Heathcote development is we're going to have people coming down the east side and they're crossing over on that
That's
side
what I
of the
was trying to
bridge.
figure out, how they're going to get from one side of the road.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the paved trail is on the east side, north of town. We have it on the
West side.
west side
And
due
they
to
were informed of
slope.
that when they put it on the east side years and years ago as part of the plan, and they wanted to hear nothing about it. Yeah, I know.
On the east side of town, I talked about the rezonings, the old Marshall Commons, with the multifamily and townhouses. That's still in the throes of its initial review. So,
Yeah, a question for you. I was looking at the county schedule for CPA initiation tomorrow, and I noticed that as part of the presentation by staff, they included a list of all of the comp plan amendments that were still in the pipe from previous years. I'm curious what your experience in Loudoun County has been with comprehensive amendments that have sat on the books for 10 years, awaiting filing of something by the applicant. Does the board at some point in time entertain just eliminating them from their gap schedule?
they no longer accept applicant-initiated plan amendments.
Uh-huh.
So all those that were submitted probably during late 2004 through 2006, they've all been disposed of.
But what I'm questioning is, what does one do with an application that is just sitting there dormant? With no action by, it's comprehensive, comp plan amendments and rezonings that have sat dormant for a period of, let's say, in excess of 5 years with no action by either the planning office or by the applicant.
With rezonings, there's a 3-year inactive status where if they're in the review process, they can request to go inactive. And within that 3-year period, they can reactivate. They have to pay a fee. The planning director has to assess what's changed or not changed. And then it's put back on the docket, whether it's to the planning commission or the board. Plan amendment is kind of the same way. Although the plan amendment's a little trickier because once the planning commission makes its recommendation, the board has to act within 90 days.
These are ones that haven't been acted on. They're still
Yeah.
in the application stage and never got past that and are literally 10 years old. I mean,
And they don't have that anymore. They disposed of all the applicant-initiated ones, and then the board ones, if they've initiated it, they've seen it through. So,
Just curious because there's just some dead wood hanging out there, and I hate these things that just hang out there like the sword of Damocles, and at some point in time,
well, Loudoun's changing that because you have that problem. So,
okay, I'm going to have to take that up with the Gainesville supervisor then. Anything else? Do I have a last motion?
Real quick, again, budget workshop,
That wasn't what
Tuesday,
I was looking for,
the 19th. It's open to the public. Please come and give input.
but do you have any other motions?
And motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. That was the one I was looking for.
you didn't fall asleep. You can watch it online anytime. You want to fall asleep? This is just.
All right, how much help do you need with CIP, or do you?
I don't think I do. The 5-year CIP, oh, I'm going to need a lot of help.
Comments back on. Certainly welcome.
That's up to her.
On the 5-year